How Steven Yeun is creating a more authentic, representative Hollywood. Written by Glenn Rhee. The Korean-American actor struggled to cope with Asian-American representation in Hollywood for years. Now, he's finally in a position to dictate its rules. While Steven Yeun is best known for his role as Glenn Rhee in The Walking Dead, it's now abundantly clear that the role was merely the beginning of an illustrious career. Through a variety of acting roles in character-driven films and animated shows, leading up to this year's release of Minari, Yeun has proved himself as a deeply empathetic and honest presence on the screen, an actor who no doubt has the chops to be nominated for this year's Best Actor award. Playing fan-favorite Glenn Rhee in The Walking Dead. From the moment Yeun's character Glenn Rhee saved Rick Grimes from a military tank overrun by walkers, zombies, in episode 2 of The Walking Dead, he was an instant fan favorite.
Nice moves there, Clint Eastwood. You the new sheriff? Come riding in to clean up the town?
The first survivor we meet in this post-apocalyptic world, Glenn set the standard for the absolute best of humanity one could see in a zombie outbreak, putting his own life at risk to help a stranger escape his otherwise doomed demise. As a character, Glenn flourished as a positive force within Rick's group, the kind of everyman that everyone trusted. This kind of altruism is something that the character seems to chase for the rest of the show's tenure, struggling to find a safe home among strangers who mostly are only thinking of their own survival.
Back at the tank, why'd you stick your neck out for me?
Oh, in foolish, naive hope that if I'm ever that far up shit creek, somebody might do the same for me.
As one of the few Asian American characters with such an important stake in its project narrative, Glenn also succeeded in transcending other Walking Dead character legacies. For the Asian American audience, having Glenn was a gift, a wonderful way to see themselves represented on screen in a persona that didn't feel built on stereotypes. Glenn wasn't explicitly defined by his race, and particularly subverted Hollywood's old convention of illustrating Asian men as unattractive or emasculated. To put it simply, he wasn't ancillary. He was essential to the group and their cause. More importantly, he was a character that audiences wanted to be. Yeun knew this and has expressed his pride in playing such a positive and beloved character in the past. However, there are sometimes limits to a role, and over time Yeun grew tired of Glenn's inability to transcend his nice guy persona. Glenn was a positive force, but he wasn't three-dimensional. In a recent interview with Variety, Yeun said he was proud to play Glenn, but at a certain point, he wanted to be more than the plucky nice guy who served as a moral compass.
Do you think Andrea's on her period? I'm only asking because it's like all the women are acting really weird.
I couldn't be stuck servicing just a genial-natured guy for the rest of my career. On the inside, I didn't feel that way. On the inside, I can be angry, I can be vengeful, I can be all other things, and I wanted to explore those things for myself. Ultimately, Yeun's time on The Walking Dead was brought to a grisly end in the season 7. Though Glenn's death was the plot point many felt was bound to happen, it still felt like the end of an era. Yeun had perfected his performance of Glenn so much that if you ask a former Walking Dead fan when they stopped watching the show, there's a fair chance they'll say, when Glenn died. Going abroad to find success. After embodying many voice acting roles such as one in Nickelodeon's The Legend of Korra and starring as a supporting role in Boots Riley's Sorry to Bother You, Yeun starred in a critically acclaimed South Korean film titled Burning. Though Yeun was born in Seoul, his family moved to Michigan when he was 4 years old, so he grew up in the States.
Your folks live in Michigan.
Yes, they live in Michigan.
And that's where you grew up for a lot of your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
As a Korean American, Yeun says he often felt like a fish out of water filming Burning in Korea, where things felt familiar but cultural nuances highlighted his Americanness. Ultimately though, the film was an important step for him in fulfilling his artistic goals. In the psychological thriller, he plays Ben, a multifaceted character that is charismatic on the outside, wicked on the inside. This Great Gatsby-type role gave him the authority over the film's narrative in a way that none of his previous roles were able to grant him, a far cry from Glenn's predictable persona in The Walking Dead. Burning was also a chance for Yeun to experience what true representation means. It wasn't just being granted a spot at the table, it's being treated like everyone else. In The Walking Dead, and all of television for that matter, he was the Asian guy. But as he says, if you go to Korea, the characters are just humans because they're not thinking about it like that. That's something that I was made aware of with Burning, which was really wonderful for me to know. I didn't have to represent all Asians, I could represent myself. With Asian American representation becoming more present in Hollywood, this seems to be a rising discourse at hand, with shows like Bling Empire and House of Ho being criticized by Asian Americans for incorrectly depicting Asian culture, or not representing it enough.
Everything looks good from the outside, but the inside is just so hard.
When it's good between us, it's good.
But do all Asian American films need to be about heritage focused on their Asianness? Can every Asian film be expected to truly represent the breadth of what are complex and multifaceted cultures? These are all interesting issues to explore, and there aren't clear answers, which is why it's curious to look at Yeun's career and see what he's learned from the front lines. The promise of Minari in an ever-changing Hollywood. This all leads to Yeun's anticipated performance as the patriarch of the Yi family in A24's Minari, which is playing in select theaters and virtual screenings and will be available to stream on February 26th. The film follows a South Korean immigrant family as they relocate from California to Arkansas in the 1980s, hoping to establish a better life for themselves. It's a story about the American dream and the underlying struggles of straddling both Korean and American culture. Yeun describes the experience as catharsis, an opportunity for him to depict a story mirroring his own bringing, allowing him to understand his parents in a new, profound, and immersive way. This personal attachment to the film truly aids his graceful and raw performance, and is a hallmark example of the magic that can occur when Asian Americans are allowed to helm their own narratives. The conceit of the story, in fact, is based on director Lee Isaac Chung's own upbringing as well.
Director Lee Isaac Chung based the film, which was shot in Oklahoma over 25 days, on his own family's story.
With Glenn from The Walking Dead representing the American and Ben from Burning representing the Korean, Minari feels like a fitting way for Yeun to truly explore his Asian American heritage. It's a true amalgamation of his career so far and truly anchors him as one of the most important Asian American artists of our time. After receiving accolades from a number of film festivals from Minari, Yeun was recently nominated for Outstanding Performance by a Male Actor in a Leading Role for the SAG Awards, and is currently a frontrunner for this year's Academy Awards. If nominated, he will be the first Asian American actor to be considered for the Best Actor award. A true class act, Steven Yeun will no doubt continue to lead Asian American artists into new heights, leading the burgeoning conversation on authentic diversity and representation with nuance and grace.